My stepdaughter didn't invite me to her high school graduation. But when it was time for her to go to college, I told her to go meet her real dad, the one she replaced me with on her big day. Hi, I'm Omari Denver, and I'm 57 years old. And before you judge me, stay with me till the end, because the lesson this story taught me might just change the way you look at family, loyalty, and love itself. For context, I've been in Aaliyah's life since she was 7. She's 17 now. I didn't come into her world trying to replace anyone. I came in trying to build something. A family. Her mother, Lydia, and I married when her kids were still in grade school. I wasn't the cool stepdad or the strict one. I was just the dependable one. The one who showed up when I said I would, and who made sure there was never a missed payment or an empty plate. I've never claimed to be perfect. My job takes a lot of my time, long hours, tight deadlines here and there, a lot of late nights. I missed some school events, I'll admit that. But I always tried to make the ones I could, the evening performances, the weekend games, the parent meetings that ran late into the night. I figured love wasn't about being there every minute, but being there when it mattered. Turns out, that's not how everyone sees it. A few months ago, Aaliyah had her high school graduation, the one we'd talked about for years. I'd planned to leave work early, bring flowers, take pictures, maybe even surprise her. But when that day came, no one called. No one texted. I thought maybe the ceremony got postponed, until I checked my phone at work during lunch and saw the photos. Aaliyah, smiling in her cap and gown. Lydia beside her. And right next to them, a man I hadn't seen in over a decade. Her biological father. I don't know if you've ever felt your stomach drop while sitting still. That quiet kind of heartbreak that doesn't come with yelling or tears, just silence. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I locked my phone, went back to work, and didn't say a word, because sometimes silence says everything. Back then, when I met Lydia, I was in my mid-40s, still believing I had time to build the kind of life I'd always wanted. She had 2 kids from her first marriage, Aaliyah and Malik. Aaliyah was 7 then, Malik was just 5. Their father had been out of the picture for years, calls here and there, promises that never stuck. Lydia told me early on she couldn't have more children. Some complications after Malik's birth, she said quietly, as if confessing a sin. I remember smiling and telling her it didn't matter. I've wanted to be a father more than I've wanted to make one, I told her. And I meant it. Those kids became my world faster than I expected. Aaliyah was bright, sharp tongue, and a soft heart. Malik was shy but loyal. I wasn't trying to be their dad. I just wanted to be present. And presence, in my head, meant providing. I worked as a senior logistics manager for a freight company. It was a demanding job that came with long hours, last-minute calls, and weeks where I'd barely see daylight. But the pay was steady. The benefits were solid. It was the kind of work you didn't love, but learned to respect. So I worked. I worked when Aaliyah had spelling bees I couldn't attend. I worked when Malik had field days that fell on weekdays. But I also worked to make sure they never had to think twice about tuition, uniforms, or after-school clubs. I hated it, but as a black man who grew up with a single mom who had to turn tricks in order to put food on the table for her kids, I knew this was something I had to do. And I hoped they would understand. Lydia, at least. And when I could make it, the late-night recitals, the weekend games, the open houses that ran into the evening, I was there. Always there. Flowers in hand. I thought presence could be measured in love and sacrifice. Turns out, they only counted what they could see. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I overestimated the power of consistency and underestimated how much visibility mattered. Because in their eyes, especially Aaliyah's, I think I became more of a background figure than a father figure. Someone dependable, yes, but not someone to celebrate. And I get it, to a point. Teenagers crave the visible, not the constant. The dad who shows up on stage looks louder than the one who pays for the stage lights. Still, it hurts sometimes, the way she'd talk about her real dad, like he was a myth she was saving space for. I'd hear his name slip into conversations, not with anger, but with curiosity. Wonder if Dad will call this year. Maybe he'll come for graduation when I'm older. Lydia would shut it down quickly, but I never did. Because I didn't want to be the reason she stopped hoping. Even when I knew that hope didn't include me. So I kept doing what I knew best, working hard, giving more, showing up in the ways I could. I figured time would take care of the rest. That one day, when she was grown, she'd look back and realize who stayed, who held the line. Maybe I was blind. Maybe I thought love and loyalty could be bought with effort. Was I wrong for thinking consistency would count for something? When you love someone else's child, you walk a fine line between patience and pride. You teach yourself to celebrate small wins, the casual thanks, Omari, instead of dad. The occasional hug after a big event. The way she'd introduce me to her friends as my mom's husband, which later graduated to stepdad. Even at that, you could see from her smile that she meant more. I told myself that was enough. I told myself I didn't need titles or labels, just peace. So when graduation season came, I was ready to be proud. Ready to clap the loudest, even if I was the quiet one in her life. But I never got the chance. I wasn't even looking for it that day. It found me. It was a Friday afternoon at work. I was checking emails between deliveries when a message popped up from my cousin Tund. Just a simple text. Bro, your girl looks so happy. You must be proud. Attached was a link to a Facebook post. I clicked, and there it was. Aaliyah, in her white and blue graduation gown, smiling so wide her eyes nearly disappeared. Lydia beside her, arm around her waist. And standing on Aaliyah's other side, a man I hadn't seen in over 10 years. Her biological father. The caption under the post read, "Grateful for the gift of family." In one picture, I saw everything I'd been missing. Not at that ceremony, but for years. I stared at it so long that my computer screen went dim. I blinked and looked again, as if maybe I'd misread something. But no, there he was. A man who had missed birthdays, skipped school plays, and vanished when child support became too inconvenient. Now standing center frame, looking like he'd been there all along. And me? I was sitting in an office 20 miles away, paying for the very education being celebrated in that picture. There's a kind of silence that feels like gravity, so heavy and inescapable. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry at that moment. I just sat there, and for the first time in years, I felt small. That evening, I got home and found Lydia in the kitchen, rinsing dishes. She looked up and smiled. Graduation went well? I said. She froze for half a second, then nodded. It was beautiful. I didn't want to bother you at work. Bother me? I asked, keeping my tone even. Lydia, you didn't even tell me it was happening. She sighed, wiping her hands on a towel. Omari, you've been so busy lately. We knew you wouldn't be able to make it, and Aaliyah didn't want you to feel pressured. It wasn't personal. Not personal. That phrase always fascinates me. How something can slice you open and still be not personal. I didn't say much that night. I just nodded and went to the living room. But inside, I was replaying every moment. Every night I'd stayed late at the office, so those school fees would never be late. Every event I'd missed, so she could have the kind of education her real dad never paid a dime toward. The next day, a relative confirmed what I'd already begun to suspect. Lydia had been the one who contacted her ex-husband. She'd told him the time and venue. She'd even picked him up from the train station. That truth hurt more than the photo ever could. Later that evening, when I confronted her about it, she didn't deny it. She wanted him there, she said. He's still her father, Omari. She's been asking about him for months. What was I supposed to do? I stared at her, quiet for a moment. Then I asked, she wanted him there? That's fine. I'm not mad at that. But why did I have to be left out? Her face hardened. Omari, we discussed the graduation a month before. You knew when it was going to happen, and you forgot. I'm not blaming you. I recognize how hard you work for this family. Roman being there was Aaliyah trying to protect herself. Other kids had their dads there today. She didn't want to be left out. Besides, they've been in contact for a while, and when he insisted on coming to her graduation, I didn't want things to be awkward. That's why I kept it from you. Awkward. That word burned. Awkward, I repeated. You think it's awkward watching your wife and stepdaughter celebrate a milestone you paid for, without you? Lydia rolled her eyes. You're making this about yourself now, as usual. You've never really been there for her anyway. You think money replaces time. That one landed, because she wasn't entirely wrong. I had missed moments. But then again, she never complained when those missed moments came with paid bills, a stable home, and her kids' tuition covered every semester. I reminded her of that, calmly. I might not have been there for every lunch or school play, Lydia, but the lights have never gone out in this house. Not once. Every meal, every trip, every uniform, that's me. And now I'm the stranger at my own daughter's graduation. Yeah, I think I've earned the right to call her my daughter. Her silence said enough. The argument didn't explode. It just deflated into quiet bitterness. This wasn't just another big fight. I couldn't yet place it, but I felt blindsided and betrayed. We slept on opposite sides of the bed that night, both pretending to be asleep. And in that quiet, I had one of those thoughts you wish you didn't. Was I really the villain? Or had I just stopped being convenient to love? That question wouldn't leave me. It followed me to work the next morning, rode with me in the car, sat with me through lunch. I wasn't looking for pity. I wasn't even looking for justice. I just wanted acknowledgement, a single thank you for holding it all together. But sometimes people grow so used to your presence, they start confusing it for obligation. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my car in the driveway. The house lights glowed softly through the curtains. My own home, and yet, I'd never felt more like a visitor. And maybe that's what broke me. Not the betrayal, not the disrespect, but the realization that you can give people everything and still feel unseen. Because at some point, love without recognition starts to feel a lot like servitude. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could serve a love that couldn't even see me. Months passed, but the air in that house never really cleared. No one mentioned the graduation again. Not Lydia, not Aaliyah. It was like they'd silently agreed to bury it somewhere between the laundry and the dinner table. But the silence had a weight to it. Conversations became shorter, laughs rarer. We existed in the same house, but it felt more like a shared waiting room. Then college season rolled around. Acceptance letters started arriving, thick envelopes, excited shrieks, group texts flying around. Aaliyah had been accepted into 3 schools, and Lydia was thrilled. They'd sit at the table with brochures, talking about dorms, majors, and campus life. I'd listen quietly, sipping my coffee, saying nothing. I could feel Lydia's eyes on me every now and then, waiting for me to chime in, to start the usual conversation about tuition payments and scholarship options. But I didn't. And when I didn't, she finally brought it up herself. We were having dinner one evening, the 2 of us. Aaliyah was upstairs in her room, scrolling through her phone, I guess. Lydia was talking about dorm deposits, and I was barely touching my plate. So, Lydia said casually, we'll need to start setting money aside soon for the tuition payments. First installments due in August. I didn't look up right away. I just took a sip of water and said evenly, I'm not contributing to that. Lydia froze mid-bite. Then she laughed softly, the kind of laugh that's half disbelief, half irritation. What? He asked. I repeated myself. Omari, stop. That's not funny. I'm not joking, I said, finally meeting her eyes. The smile disappeared. What do you mean you're not contributing? Why, what did she do? I put my fork down. My voice stayed calm. I paid for everything when I thought I was family. But apparently, I'm just the guy who works too much to be a dad. Her expression changed, from shock to anger. Oh, so this is still about the graduation? You're really going to punish her for that? You're being a child, Omari. You're letting your ego run wild. I leaned back, kept my tone steady. No man forgets something like that, Lydia. Not when he's spent 10 years holding a family together just to be erased in a single photo. I paused, then added quietly. If she can invite her real father to the stage, maybe he can help her reach the next one. The sound of the chair scraping broke the silence. I looked up and saw Aaliyah standing at the doorway. I hadn't even realized she'd been listening. Her face was red, her eyes wet. You're unbelievable, she snapped. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, she turned and stormed off. The door slammed upstairs. There it goes. 10 years of parental relationship flushed away. I guess the relationship was one-sided seeing, as it was so easy for her to cut me off on her big day. For a moment, Lydia and I just sat there, the sound of her footsteps fading above us. I didn't chase after her. I just exhaled slowly. Funny how they call it petty when you finally stop being useful. No one said another word that night. Lydia gathered the plates in silence, her movements sharp, mechanical. The days after that grew quieter. The kind of quiet that doesn't heal but hardens. Lydia started sleeping in the guest room for space, she said. I didn't argue. Dinner became a routine. Eat, clean, retreat. No laughter, no eye contact. Just the sound of cutlery and the occasional clink of glass. And every night, as I turned off the lights, I thought to myself, was I wrong for drawing the line? Or was I just late to the realization that I'd never been inside the circle? It's strange, a house can still be full and feel empty. Mine did, every single night. Weeks went by, and the silence between Lydia and me stopped being awkward. It became routine. We passed each other like tenants in the same space, trading short sentences that kept the house functional but hollow. Then one Saturday afternoon, it all broke. I was in the living room reading when Lydia came in, her face tight with anger. "You really meant it, didn't you?" she said. "You're just not going to help Aaliyah with college." I closed the book slowly. "I already said what I meant." She folded her arms. "You're unbelievable. You're letting pride destroy everything we built." I looked up at her. "No, Lydia. I let pride build this home. What's destroying it is the lack of respect inside it." Her eyes flashed. "Respect? You think you earn respect by holding grudges? You've been walking around this house like some martyr because your feelings got hurt. You're acting like a child." We kept on shouting and arguing as I tried to make her understand how I needed to be acknowledged for all the sacrifices I've ever made for my family. Then she said the words that cut through everything. "Maybe you should have had your own if you wanted one so badly." The air went still. For a long time, neither of us moved. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock, marking every second of silence. Then I said quietly, "Maybe I do. As a matter of fact, not maybe. I really do want one." Her expression changed instantly, confusion first, then disbelief. "What are you talking about?" I took a breath. "I've been thinking about it. Adoption, maybe even surrogacy. I'm not sure yet. But I've realized something, Lydia. I've spent my whole life being a father to another man's children. Maybe it's time I raise my own." She blinked, as if trying to decide whether I was serious. "You can't be serious," she said finally. "You're 57, Omari. You can't just decide to start over because you're hurt. This isn't about wanting a child. This is about punishing me, punishing them." I shook my head. "This isn't punishment, Lydia. It's clarity. I've poured years into proving myself in a home that still sees me as an outsider. I thought love would eventually turn into belonging. But maybe belonging isn't something you earn. Maybe it's something you're either given or denied." Lydia's voice cracked. "So what, you think a new baby is going to fix everything? You think that'll fill whatever emptiness you've got inside? This is an ego issue, Omari. No kid is going to fix that." "No," I said softly. "But it might remind me what real connection feels like, the kind that isn't conditional on convenience or comparison." She sat down across from me, tears starting to form. "You're trying to replace my kids," she whispered. "You're trying to erase them." I stared at the floor for a moment before answering. "You can't replace what was never yours to begin with." That line hung in the air. I didn't mean it to wound her. I meant it because it was the truth. All those years, I'd convinced myself that love was enough, that if I just gave more, worked harder, stayed longer, I'd eventually earn a place that felt like mine. But the graduation proved otherwise. I wasn't family. I was support staff. Reliable, replaceable, invisible. Does that make me selfish or finally honest? Lydia didn't respond. She just stared at me, as if seeing someone she no longer recognized. In that moment, I realized something else. I wasn't angry anymore. The rage had burned itself out. What was left was something quieter, something colder. Acceptance. I got up, walked past her toward the door, and said without turning back, "I'm done trying to convince people to love me out of obligation." Behind me, I heard her voice break into sobs, soft at first, then harder. But I didn't turn around. Somewhere deep down, I knew that if I did, I'd start apologizing for wanting something human, something simple. To feel seen, to feel like a father in his own home. And I wasn't going to apologize for that anymore. The weeks that followed felt like slow motion. The house went from tense to empty in a matter of days. Aaliyah packed up for college. She ended up applying for a student loan and had to settle for the least prestigious university amongst her offers. I felt sad for her, really. But as I'd already found out, there's no gratitude at the end of that road. Malik found work in another city. Lydia pretended it was all normal, that the quiet meant peace, not fallout. We didn't talk much. The conversations that used to fill dinner time had been reduced to short exchanges about bills or schedules. Even those sounded like business meetings now. I moved into the guest room, told her it was temporary, but we both knew it wasn't. It was easier that way. Easier than lying side by side in a bed full of unspoken things. At night, I'd sit by the small desk in that room, laptop open, looking through adoption websites. Reading about requirements, processes, waiting lists. Some nights I'd even message agencies, just to ask questions. And on the days I didn't, I'd talk with an old friend, Marcus, a single dad I used to work with. He told me it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. If you're doing it for love, Omari, he said, you'll figure the rest out. It felt strange, being this old and thinking about starting over. But for the first time in years, the thought didn't scare me. It grounded me. Then one evening, my phone rang. The caller ID made me pause. Aaliyah. I hadn't heard her voice since that night she stormed out. I answered slowly. Hey. She hesitated. Hi. There was a silence between us that felt longer than it was. Then we proceeded to talk. We spoke about things, uncleared things. Her own side of the whole matter. She said quietly, I know you're mad. I just thought it'd be awkward having both of you there. That's all. It was Mom's idea to have him there, at first. She thought you wouldn't come, and I didn't want to be without a dad on that day. Different from the other kids. Her words landed somewhere between explanation and excuse. I didn't get angry. I didn't even sigh. I just said softly, awkward is better than absent, Aaliyah. There was silence again. I could hear her breathing, shaky, maybe nervous. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. I know, I replied. And I did. But knowing didn't make it easier to forget. Do people ever realize what they've done? I wondered silently. Or do they just miss what they used to get? The conversation ended the way most strained relationships do. Half apology, half avoidance. When I hung up, I didn't feel better. Just quieter. A few nights later, Lydia walked into the guest room without knocking. She looked tired, the kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep. She glanced at the laptop screen and saw the adoption agency page open. So you're really doing this? She asked. I didn't look up right away. I'm thinking about it. Her voice rose, sharp with disbelief. You can't be serious. Omari, we can still fix this. You don't need to start a whole new life to prove a point. I closed the laptop slowly and looked at her. This isn't about proving a point. It's about peace. I spent 17 years trying to be a father. Maybe it's time to finally feel like one. She blinked, but didn't respond. Her eyes softened, just for a moment, like she wanted to say something, but the words got lost somewhere between regret and pride. Then she turned and walked away. When the door closed, the house fell back into its familiar quiet. Only this time, it didn't feel heavy. It just felt honest. It's been a few months now. The house still feels quiet, but the silence doesn't bite like it used to. Lydia and I talk, but mostly in fragments. Words that hover between civility and finality. We haven't said the word divorce out loud, but it's sitting somewhere between us, patient, unspoken, waiting. I still think about adoption sometimes. Other times, I think about just starting fresh altogether, somewhere no one knows my history, no one's measuring my worth by someone else's past. And then some nights, my thoughts drift to something darker. The what-ifs. What if I did try to have a child naturally? Not with Lydia, that bridge is ash, but with someone new. Someone who might actually see me. I've had the opportunity, a few times. But every time, I stop myself. Because I don't want to lie to anyone. And I don't want to become the kind of man I've spent my whole life trying not to be. Someone who breaks a promise just to feel whole again. So here I am, caught between what I want and what's right. Between fatherhood and freedom. Between staying loyal to a life that forgot me. And stepping into one that might finally remember who I am. It's a strange thing, realizing you can love people deeply and still decide to let them go. That walking away doesn't always mean you stopped caring. Sometimes it just means you've finally started caring about yourself, too. A few days ago, I got an email. It was from Aaliyah. No long message, no dramatic apology. Just a single line and a photo of her standing in her dorm room. Walls covered in posters, a messy desk, and a soft smile I hadn't seen in a while. Thanks for everything you did for me, even if I didn't see it then. I read it 3 times. Not because I needed to, but because I didn't want to rush it. For once, her words didn't hurt. They just landed softly. Like closure. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some things don't need quick answers. They need quiet ones. And as I sat there, staring at the photo, a thought crossed my mind. Some lessons don't come with apologies. Some just come too late. Maybe that's what this whole journey has been, a lesson in timing, in gratitude, in learning when to stop trying to prove you deserve a seat at a table that was never built for you. I used to think love dies where betrayal begins. But now I know, love dies where gratitude ends. If you've ever been where I am, giving everything and still ending up unseen, Tell me in the comments what you'd have done differently. And if you've watched this far, don't just scroll away. People who don't subscribe often forget the stories that remind them who they are. So go ahead, subscribe, because the next story might just be the one that finds you.